On Labour Lens this week, Imo State pensioners protest non-payment of monthly pension, while Maritime Workers Union of Nigeria insists that it will resist any form of sack and cut in salary of workers in the sector. Also on the show, Nigeria Employers Consultative Association (NECA) wants more friendly policies that will favor employers of labor as world bodies predict poor future for the economy following the coronavirus pandemic. We will examine concerns of organized labor over the rise in unemployment, underemployment, and non-implementation of the new national minimum wage in some states across Nigeria. The man leading the Senior Public Service Union in Nigeria is my guest on the program. Ellen, welcome to the program. I am Sharon Ijason. Let's take a moment.
They came out in their numbers, blocking the major Wedra roundabout, which caused a gridlock. The senior citizens are out to the streets with placards protesting non-payment of 5 months pension arrears.
We now agree to come and beg for arms from Imo people with our plates to beg to eat. Some of us are in the hospital. As I'm speaking with these pressmen, we have recorded more than 42 dead pensioners officially, excluding those in the rural areas. We have recorded more than that. So we cannot sit and watch our people die.
Promising that the state government will clear all pension arrears before the end of the week, the secretary to the state government said the delay was as a result of the government's effort to generate a reliable data of pensioners.
The government is promising before ending of this week, you will get your pensions. It wasn't deliberate. When we came in, we met some problems as regards to pension and pensioners. There was no reliable data. Who is a pensioner and who is not? However, this is not a period of apportioning blames. We have come to solve problems.
The senior citizens in their numbers left the arena with the strong assurance from the state government.
Maritime Workers Union of Nigeria has warned employers in the country's maritime industry against retrenchment and deduction of salary of workers under the guise of the negative effects of the coronavirus pandemic. The union gave the warning during presentation of personal protective equipment to seafarers across the country's seaports. It's part of activities marking the 2020 World Seafarers Day. The president of the union, Adewale Adeyanju, stressed that distributing safety and protective wares to seafarers, such as hand sanitizers, gloves, face masks, infrared thermometers, among others, will begin across seaports. While felicitating with seafarers on the day, the union described them as floating prisoners, adding that they need support of government and regulator, Nigerian Maritime Administration and Safety Agency, NMASA, and employers to strengthen and sustain the sector.
We raise an issue that some of the bad employers of labor, they are riding at the back of the COVID-19 to downsize our members. And we equally sent a notice of warning to all employers of labor that they should see reason that our door is always open for dialogue, that they should not ride at the back of COVID-19 to what? To continue downsizing our members in the industry. And you know, the stand of Nigeria Labour Congress is our stand as well. We will resist any attempt by all these wicked employers of labor who are trying to say, okay, fine, this is an opportunity for them to reduce our members. So we are going to resist it, and we stand to support the Nigeria Labour Congress.
With the pressing need to address issues affecting employers of labor, the Nigeria Employers Consultative Association (NECA) engaged stakeholders through a virtual board council meeting on the way forward. In a brief review, the acting president of NECA narrates how the Nigerian economy was battered by a crushing recession in 2016 due to the global crash in price of crude oil. Coming out of the recession in the second quarter of 2017 with a 0.72% growth and 10 quarters of slow but steady growth, efforts were ongoing to review the fluctuating economy before the outbreak of the coronavirus pandemic. Before the outbreak, the outlook for the world economy, especially developing countries like Nigeria, was fragile. The global GDP growth was estimated to be only 2.5% in 2020.
With nations' lack of decisiveness in diversification away from the current predominantly oil-driven economy and the negative impact of COVID-19, these projections to a large extent have become a mirage. IMF in its last review projected the country's GDP to contract by 3.4% in 2020, and the Federal Ministry of Finance also projected a contraction of 8.9% for the year.
As oil prices falter, national debt profile becomes more unmanageable and government revenue dwindles. The government has, however, gone back to the drawing board, starting with the downward review of the 2020 national budget.
Budget was predicated on 57 naira per barrel of oil, and it has gone, it just started going up last 2 weeks. It's in the neighborhood of 40-something naira now, 40-something dollar. That is not to say that it will get to 57. We're already half year. So, government has no choice but to borrow.
The expert called for downward review of the value-added tax, VAT. One of the worst fears of the COVID-19 pandemic is the unprecedented scale of job losses that could follow in the wake of economic uncertainty. But what then becomes of a worker who is dismissed by his employer after more than 20 years of service without benefit of any kind? Ganiu Olariwanju is an ex-employee of Chemlax DMK Limited, a firm owned by Indians and co-managed by Nigerians. During an extensive interview, he narrated how he and more than 130 workers were disengaged in one day. This, according to him, happened during the COVID-19 pandemic.
If you are asking people to go, the honorable thing for you to do is to calculate all their entitlements and ask them to go. And their entitlement should be less all indebtedness to them. But up to this moment, they are not saying anything. What they are maintaining is that they are not going to pay redundancy benefit to anybody, of which the union is still contesting with them. This problem, we have actually notified the Labour Ministry. But at the Labour Ministry, there are many channels to follow, there are many doors to knock, so the problem is still ongoing. But I just want the world to know, because the board chairman is saying that whatever decision that he has taken, nobody can change.
Before the pandemic, the National Bureau of Statistics reported that Nigeria's unemployment rate rose to 23.1% and underemployment rose to 16.6%, with over 20 million Nigerians unemployed. This figure has increased significantly with the impending job losses as a result of the public health crisis. At a protest held at the premises of Chelams, former employees of the firm says they want their benefits and pensions paid.
Our grievance here is non-payment of our benefits. For example, you told people to go to leave the job. We are not saying you cannot fire. Any organization has the right to hire and fire. But what we are fighting for and what we are begging the management of Chellerans PLC is that pay us our benefits. We are hungry, we need money.
I've worked for the company for 25 years and 4 months before they now terminate my appointment as at 1st of May. I'm begging in on the management to please pay us our benefits. They are still owing us 50% of our gratuity.
The pension that has not been remitted for 4 months, because of that pension that has not been remitted to our various pension managers, we could not process our 25% because normally they should give us our 24% after 4 months so that at least we can have something to do with that. But up to now, they said they cannot give us until Chellerams remit that money to them.
We are not begging, we are not asking for anything. Well, we are asking for our entitlement, all what belongs to us. They should calculate it and give it to us so that we will go. That's why we are calling the Nigerians to come out and beg for us, please.
As of today, the Vice President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, who is leading the Economic Stability Committee, reported that about 39.4 million Nigerians may be without jobs by the end of 2020.
COVID-19 has presented us with an enormous economic challenge. And it comes at a time when our poverty levels have risen really phenomenally. I'm sure that you're all quite familiar now with the MBS figures on poverty. We are told by the National Bureau of Statistics that over 40% of Nigerians earn less than 137,000 naira a year. A year, not a month, a year, over 40%. And, you know, during the last recession, we lost almost 18 million jobs. Now this, from all indications, might be an even deeper recession if we don't take some very, very drastic steps. So not only are we faced with a major poverty problem, we're also faced with an economic slump. And a combination of this will give rise to, and my major concern is not just the deepening poverty, but also the possibility of serious social disturbance, you know. And at the moment, with the security challenges that we have, if we are not careful, we may find ourselves in a situation where any spark anywhere can become a national crisis. So that's the reason why I thought we should, with the economic sustainability plan, we should really focus on how to find jobs for the people.
Chris Ngige, Minister for Labour, Employment and Productivity, says employers are encouraged to retain their workers as palliative will be given to them.
Part of saving the jobs means also that we have to talk to employers, the organized private sector in particular, and make sure that the jobs in that sector are kept. We did that, and we assured those people of incentives. The central bank came out with the incentives, waiver of taxes, moratorium on loans, available funds for new loans at low interest rate, single digits, and some other incentives to keep the industry going.
For Ganiu Olanriwaju, he wants his April salary paid alongside his terminal benefit, as he and his other colleagues have served the company for more than 2 decades.
Our concern is, since the contract is no longer valid, they should make it a clean split and actually give us our entitlement.
With little to hope for in the job market, Ganiu and more than 39 million persons who might lose their jobs will need a stimulated economy, which will in turn promote healthy employment after COVID-19. Begin the conversation with the rise in unemployment rate in Nigeria, which is worsened by the COVID-19 pandemic. Economic forecasts suggest that Nigeria's unemployment rate could rise to 33.6% or 39.4 million people by the end of the year, if urgent steps are not taken to address the challenge. It stood at 23.1 at the end of 2018. the National Bureau of Statistics paints a gloomy picture following a survey which showed that over 40% of households could be classified as poor, with the economy expected to shrink from 4.40% to 8.91%. Joining me on the program for discussion on the issue is the National President of the Association of Senior Civil Servants of Nigeria, Comrade Boboy Kagama. It's good to have you on the program.
It's my pleasure, Sharon, and good evening to Nigerians.
A lot has been happening in the labor sector. Worst of it all is unemployment, which is not just a Nigerian factor. It's something that people are faced with all over the world. But Africa being a peculiar continent, and your experience as the national president of the senior civil servants of Nigeria and also the immediate past president of Trade Union Congress, how would you rate the response of unemployment in Nigeria?
Well, it's a global phenomenon, but all I encourage Nigerians and government in particular is to make sure that we diversify. The problem now is we have abandoned our farmlands. So we must get back to the farms. And everybody, irrespective of whether you are a worker, a businessman or woman, you need to get back to the land. And that is the best and the fastest way of revamping our economy right now. Our agricultural sector must be put to effective use. So how will that be possible? Government needs to put incentives in place. Government needs to put in place machineries, agricultural inputs, soft loans to farmers, and then go a little further to ensure that these our medium and small scale businesses are also encouraged to thrive. We know the bigger businesses, they have their own ways of managing their own challenges through their arrangements with commercial banks. But medium, small-scale industries, farmers, they find it very, very difficult. So Nigerian workers are at the receiving end. For those who do not practice farming, this is the worst of times for them. So, but as a leader and somebody that has practiced farming, I encourage our members to go into farming because that is the only way out.
Recently, the federal government approved of the arrears report, which Labour has actually kicked against, owing to the fact that there is this assumption that many workers could lose their job. As the head of the public sector, would you say that the arrears report, which states about how the economy should be managed vis-a-vis the many parastatals that the federal government has, do you think it's welcomed?
Well, it's a case of government trying to solve its own challenges with bringing in issues that are supposed to have been addressed long before now. Be that as it may, we challenge government to engage the critical stakeholders. The public sector workers are not amenable to changes in government. But when those changes are to be effected, engage the trade unions, engage the workers' representative. Because as we are talking, more bills are in the National Assembly urging or trying to create more agencies. And we are saying that the existing agencies are too much, that they should be merged. So there should be a kind of a collaborative effort between the executive and the legislative arm to address this kind of problems. And again, there should be a kind of a clear-cut synergy between the representative of Nigerian workers and government so that we see the best way out. But when you say you want to bring down the cost of governance, we keep telling politicians that, even though I am one now, that the retinues of our personal aids. Cut down on this. Whatever we have as our emolument, let's streamline them. By the time you do that, something that is affecting you as a chief executive, your workers will also say, no, my chief executive has been very reasonable. We should also be as well reasonable. So if not that is done, there will be that problem of, look, you have not curtailed your excesses. Why do you want me to sacrifice more than you can sacrifice? Meanwhile, you earn more than I do. You have a sovereign package.
So you're of the view that the government should be honest when trying to address the Oreswanya's report or implement the report?
Bring issues on the table for discussion. The Oreswanya report cannot be pushed aside. They are the good elements of the report. They are also the bad elements of the report. But when people are engaged, when critical stakeholders are engaged constructively, we will be able to see which part of the report that can be easily implemented, which part of the report can be implemented later after putting certain measures that will curtail or will allay the fears of Nigerian workers.
So what's your union doing at the moment in terms of engaging? We know that it's a difficult time looking at the interstate lockdown and all, but what is your union doing to ensure that state governments are responsible at this point in time?
Well, we call on them. We also I want to seize this opportunity to call on the governments that have not implemented to do same, because it's not an issue of favor, but they know that there is hunger in the land. There's poverty in the land. And the best way to alleviate poverty, the best way to lift the population is paying of pension, paying of worker salary. These are the only funds that get into the local market. So if this money is getting to local market, local economies pick up.
Talking about pensions very quickly, we've had a lot of states complain. Many pensioners, for example, have gone to the street to protest in Imo, in Abia, and some states like that. How responsive would you say government is in terms of treating the senior citizens in the country?
It's very sad. But we strongly believe that those state governments should correct this, because this is like a kind of a senior citizen, somebody that has served the country meritoriously. And he is that. Some of them are not getting more than 10,000 naira. In fact, some even 5,000 naira. So if somebody wants to get his 5,000 naira, 10,000 naira, and you deny that person, it's just like you want to sniff life out of him, because they are weak now. They can't go to farm. Probably the best they can do is petty trading in front of their houses or whatever. So if you deny them these things they use in feeding themselves, it's like you want to sniff life out of them. So we call on the government, not only because of the fact that it is their own responsibility, it's also a responsibility to them as per our holy books.
There's been this complaint by pensioners. Many of them had retired many years ago, and they had never received a review in what they receive as pension salary every month. Is there anything that you think organized labor can do to address this issue, which is now seems to be a trend?
Yeah, I think we try to address that in our the national minimum wage law, and it's expected that pension should also be reviewed as at when salaries of minimum wages are reviewed. So we expect that similar percentages used in the increase in salaries should be used in the increase of pensions. So that is the only way we can go by ensuring that our pensioners are not having static pension, but a kind of a pension that is flexible, is moving with the moving time, and is reflective of the economic realities.
Okay, very quickly, finally, I want to take you back to the issue of unemployment in the country, which has risen. The International Labour Organization has had lots of predictions that they had to change because of the realities that the world is faced with. What would be your advice to government and also those that might have lost their job at this point?
Well, I'm pretty sure particularly those in the public sector have not lost their jobs. Sure. But in the private sector, we have those cases. We urge the private sector employers of labor to call their workers back, particularly the banking sector and the manufacturing sectors. But now that most of them have folded up, we encourage them, and we also encourage government to ensure that the social investment programs they have is far below the expectation of Nigerians. They say half bread is better than none, but we still need to improve on the figures. The figures should be in their millions. And we need to also urge government to encourage investments or diversification of our economy, particularly in the agricultural sector, solid minerals, and small and medium-scale industries.
Thank you very much for joining us on the program. It was an interesting conversation I had with you. Economic experts are of the view that electricity in Nigeria is both erratic and expensive. There is the need for consistent power supply to boost productivity of businesses, as well as improve the country's economic outlook. That's the much we can take on this edition of Labor Lens. Join us next week as we continue to discuss how the coronavirus pandemic has affected the world of work. I am Sharon Ijason. Remember that labor creates wealth.